Ava Kunjabihari Jana Balaba Girivadathari Gopi Jana Balaba Girivadathari Yasodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yasodanandana Vrajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tirabanachari Yamuna Tirabanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Śrīmad Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON BBD Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Grantharaj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam Ki Jai. Gopimanam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So reading from the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, 3rd Canto, Chapter 33, and I believe we're up to text 32. Which does not have a purport, and neither does 33. So I'll chant 32 and 33 myself, and read the translation, then we'll do 34 together. So you can put 34 up there if you like. This is 32. Tasyastad yoga vidhuta martyam abhutsadit shrotasam pravada somya siddhida siddha-sevita. Dear Vidura, the material elements of her body have melted into water and are now a flowing river, which is the most sacred of all rivers. Anyone who bathes in that river also attains perfection, and therefore all persons who desire perfection go bathe there. Kapilo pi mahayogi bhagavan pitir ashramat mataram samanujapya prag udichim disham yayo. My dear Vidura, the great sage Kapila, the personality of Godhead, left his father's hermitage with the permission of his mother and went towards the northeast. Siddha-cāraṇa, this one we could do together, 34. Siddha-cāraṇa-gandharvair munibhiś cāpsaro-gaṇaiḥ stūyamānaḥ samudreṇa dattārhaṇa-niketanaḥ siddha-cāraṇa-gandharvair siddha-cāraṇa-gandharvair munibhiś cāpsaro-gaṇaiḥ munibhiś cāpsaro-gaṇaiḥ stūyamānaḥ samudreṇa stūyamānaḥ dattārhaṇa-niketanaḥ dattārhaṇa-niketanaḥ siddha-cāraṇa-gandharvair munibhiś cāpsaro-gaṇaiḥ stūyamānaḥ samudreṇa dattārhaṇa-niketanaḥ. Vaishnavis? Siddha, by the Siddhas. Cāraṇa, by the Cāraṇas. Gandharvair, by the Gandharvas. Munibhiś, by the munis. Cha, and apsaraḥ-gaṇaiḥ, by the apsarās. Damsels of the heavenly planets. Stūyamānaḥ, being extolled. Samudreṇa, by the ocean. Datta, given. Arhaṇa, oblations. Niketanaḥ, place of residence. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. While he was passing in the northern direction, all the celestial denizens known as Cāraṇas and Gandharvas, as well as the munis and the damsels of the heavenly planets, prayed and offered him all respects. The ocean offered him oblations and a place of residence. Purport. It is understood that Kapila Muni first went towards the Himalayas and traced the course of the river Ganges, and he again came to the delta of the Ganges at the sea, now known as the Bay of Bengal. The ocean gave him residence at a place still known as Gaṅgā-sāgara, where the river Gaṅgā meets the sea. That place is called Gaṅgā-sāgara-tīrtha, and even today people gather there to offer respects to Kapiladeva, the original author of the Sāṅkhya system of philosophy. Unfortunately, this Sāṅkhya system has been misrepresented by an imposter who is also named Kapila, but the other system of philosophy does not. Did I read that out? Yeah. Unfortunately, the Sāṅkhya system has been misrepresented by an imposter who is also named Kapila, but that other system of philosophy does not tally with anything described in the Sāṅkhya of Kapila in the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Om Ganatamaram Dashajananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Urmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Upakaramayam Dadapti Swaparantikam. So there are, numerous different points here that one could elaborate upon. I'm going to try to zero in on what I consider to be the most important point that Prabhupada's, and really the only philosophical point Prabhupada makes in this purport, which is that unfortunately this Sāṅkhya system has been misrepresented by an imposter who is also named Kapila, but that other system of philosophy does not tally with anything described in the Sāṅkhya of Kapila and the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. So that word tally is not a popular word anymore. You hardly hear it, and people use it. The dictionary definition of a tally is to agree with or to correspond with. And Prabhupada used it a bit. So the point that's being made here is that this Sāṅkhya philosophy of Kapila, the imposter Kapila, as Prabhupada refers to him as an imposter, it doesn't tally with anything described in the Sāṅkhya of Kapila and the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. So therefore, we reject it. Right? Kapila is an incarnation of Krishna. He's an avatar. What he says is perfect. And if something doesn't tally with that, we reject it. We take what's coming from Krishna and the avatars of Krishna as a benchmark. Prabhu, how do you go? Stand up in the back as a benchmark. Dictionary definition of a benchmark is a standard or a point of reference against which things may be compared or assessed. Just like you have like magnetic north. It's a standard point. You get the other directions from the true north. It's not like you figure out on the basis of, well, that's kind of east, so that must be, no. You have true north, it's, a magnetic north, a true north, and we figure out the other directions on the basis of that. So in the same way, you have perfect knowledge coming from Krishna, coming from the avatars of Krishna. That's perfect knowledge. And if something, to the degree something matches up with that, it has some value. If it matches up with it perfectly, it's perfect knowledge. And if it matches up with it to some degree, well, to that degree it has some value. If it doesn't match up with it, no value. We reject it. And it's being, pointed out here because this Sāṅkhya system of the imposter Kapila did not bear any resemblance to the Sāṅkhya of the real Kapila, the incarnation of Krishna. We reject that. So an analogy could be made here. Like for us, another benchmark is Prabhupada. Prabhupada is our benchmark. Prabhupada is our Kapila. Prabhupada is the representative of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So we understand the philosophy through Prabhupada. And if something doesn't match up with Prabhupada, we should reject it. Just like, of course, the philosophy of the atheistic Kapila, the imposter Kapila, doesn't match up with the philosophy, we reject it. Same way. Now somebody might say, but wait a second. What about things that Prabhupada said that don't match up with science, for instance? Well, as Judah Karma has pointed out many times in class, science is always changing. What scientists say today is different from what they said, say, 50 years ago, 100 years ago, certainly 200 years ago, 3, 4, like that, years ago. And going into the future, what scientists are saying now will be different from what scientists going 100 years, 200 years, 300 years from now are saying then. So, it's changing. So we're not very concerned that maybe Prabhupada made some statements that don't match with things that, science is saying at the present moment. Well, okay, but there's some maybe more serious concern is, but what about things that Prabhupada said that don't match up with previous acharyas said? Like, for instance, the issue of the origin of the jiva. Prabhupada said, at least to my understanding and the understanding of the official position of the GBC within ISKCON is that, the jiva started off in the spiritual world with Krishna, and due to misuse of free will, come here to the material world. But apparently, there's devotees who feel that other acharyas have said something different. So, how can we have Prabhupada as the benchmark if he's disagreeing with other acharyas? Well, yeah, that is a serious issue for concern, but I wouldn't worry about it too much. Because what can you do about it? I just go, okay, the GB says this is our official position, we should accept it like this, and just accept it and move on. In other words, I think it's more important, it's not to get hung up on discrepancies, but rather to focus in on the principle. The principle is Prabhupada's our benchmark, and by accepting Prabhupada as our benchmark, understanding the philosophy as Prabhupada presented it to us, and understanding the instructions that he gave to us, and trying to apply them in our life, that's how we're going to make advancement. That's the advancement will come like that, not by kind of getting sidetracked and getting too much concerned about discrepancies. They may be there. What can you do? Just put them in the car park and move on. The real business is, as I said, to focus on the philosophy and particularly the instructions Prabhupada gave us how to apply that philosophy in our life, right? And then, by doing that, we will advance in devotional service. And I had an interesting experience of that, or this weekend. For the last 3 days, myself, Sahadev, Shirokuro Gopinath, Krishna Kumar, we were distributing books at the Comic-Con It's a big sort of an event, and it was held down in the LA Convention Center downtown. So, just to give you a little background information, something that comes to town once a year. If anybody's sleepy, maybe they could stand up. It's gonna, if you don't mind. Thank you. Yeah, it comes to town once a year, and LA Convention Center is this huge hall. It's actually like a series of halls. It's practically the size of this our property. You know, from the corner there to where the buildings end. That's how big these halls are. Okay, and I did a little research on the internet last night because I couldn't. From looking, there's so many people came and so many vendors there. But I got some figures that said that there were close to 1,000 vendors, people selling things. You know, imagine this is big hall, and everybody gets like a booth that's 10 feet by 10 feet, and there was 1,000 of them altogether, approximately, and there was over 100,000 people that attended. So that means there was for every 100 people there was a vendor. So as you can understand from that, we had a lot of competition, right? We were there in one of those 1,000 booths, and it's 100,000 people there, and we're competing, for the sales of all these different vendors, with all these other different vendors. Okay, so that was one thing. That made me think like, wow, this could be quite challenging because there's 999 other vendors there trying to sell something. Okay, the other thing was that we're selling books, which we had to make up a whole story to get in there. They don't just kind of rent out a booth to anybody. I had what's his name? Suvana Bindu. I had him write up a whole story and submit it to them to make us sound like something else, and it worked. And they went for it. So they okay, you guys could have a booth. But people can see that our books are something to do with religion, and they don't want it. They're there for something totally different. Comic-Con, they're there to buy, paraphernalia and shirts and this and anything, something to do with all this different, that whole thing. So that made it tricky. And another thing is, we were trying to do these sets of books. I should have brought one in here to demonstrate. It's called a Sapta. It's 7 of Prabhupada's books. It's a Bhagavad Gita, a Krishna book, a Nectar of Devotion, a Teachings of Lord Chaitanya, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam 1.1, and then a Journey to Self-Discovery and a Science of Self-Realization. And we tied it with a ribbon, and it's about so high like that, and when you pick it up, it weighs something. It's not just like carrying this bead bag or something like that. It actually weighs something. And we're trying to give people that, and they, there's no lockers there. That means once they get it from us, they got to carry it around with them throughout the show for however long they stay there. So it's like, wow, how are we going to do this? So on the first day, I was just kind of giving people like, a couple of 2 or 3, some small books, and if I get them to give a big enough donation, I try to give them the set if they were willing to take it. Anyway, what happened was I had like a breakthrough on Saturday. Shirko Gopinath came with us, and he right away just jumped right into it, and he started talking to people, and he had some really good lines that he maybe heard from other devotees, or that he kind of Krishna revealed to him himself, and boom, 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 he got a few saptas out, and I thought, well, I got to try to do this. Because I know simultaneously I knew that the devotees in Krishna Life, everybody's probably heard of them. They're doing them like nothing. It's for them, they do saptas and sets of Bhagavatams like it's going out of style. It's no big deal. So, but my mind was saying, no, I tried it a few times, and it wasn't happening. And I always think, I'll just try to do, like I do at the colleges. I'll do some small books, and then I'll, see if I can get a big enough donation. But that wasn't working either. And at just some point, I just had to, okay, look, I just gonna have to surrender and do this. And I just felt pressure, I just felt like he's doing it. All these other devotees are doing it. They just, I gotta do this. So I just went, okay, I go, okay, here goes, I didn't have lines, I didn't know how to, I just, okay, here goes. I just took the sapta, and I just stopped the person, and I did my normal thing, but I didn't say anything about the books. We're in a little booth, and they were walking by, and I just say, hey, who are you dressed up as? Because they're all dressed up. Not everybody, but half the people are dressed up in some costume. So I say, who are you dressed up as? And they say, somebody, and I'd say, oh, good job, come on over. And if they say, well, myself, I'd say, well, that's the best character, come on over, So I'd get them over to the table, and I'd just say, here, this is on meditation. I just said one thing, meditation, self-realization helps to relieve stress. And then that was it. And in the meantime, they're holding the sapta, and then I'd say, so what's your name? And they'd tell me their name, and I'd say, so-and-so, I got to tell you, you really look like a rock star, my standard line. And then I just said, we're monks, we publish these ourselves, and people give a donation. Could you give a donation to help out? And sometimes people went, yeah, to my amazement. Why? I don't know. Why would they take a whole big stack of books that they can feel how heavy it is, as soon as I hand it to them, and they know I'm after money for it, and they know they got to carry it around the rest of the day, and they know that there's like 999 other booths that they, might want to buy something from, and anybody could tell these are kind of like some sort of religious or spiritual books. So, but it just. Anyway, so I just say that, and sometimes people would say yes straight away, and sometimes they would say, well, they would be quiet, and I just say, oh, but what's your career goal anyway? What do you do? And you just kind of chat them up a little bit, and then you get back to trying to, you say, anyway, people just give a donation. And the thing was, they started going out. Like to my amazement, they started, people just took that set of books without knowing anything about it. All I told them was about this meditation helps to relieve stress. That's as much as they knew about it. And then they were taking the books, and they were giving like $25, $50, $100 sometimes, like that, just for that. And it just, it gave me the realization that Krishna's in control. Because even as it was going on, even as I was doing it, I was thinking, listen, you can't do this. Even as I was doing it, I was just saying exactly what I just told you, and the books were going out, and the people giving the donations, and in my mind I was thinking, no, you can't do this. It's not. You can't hand people a big stack of books like that and say a couple words and expect them to give a donation. But it was happening. In other words, I took a leap of faith. There's this philosopher, I think he's Danish or something. His name was Søren Kierkegaard. He brought out that a leap of faith. In other words, he makes the point that you have to, in order to be like. Faith in God, it goes beyond reason, logic. In other words, it didn't matter how much I could talk to myself or hear about what other devotees are doing. I'm on the chat of a WhatsApp chat with Krishna Life. I got thousands of pictures of devotees doing these saptas and sets of Bhagavatams, and you can convince yourself, yeah, it can be, but ultimately I had to do that leap of faith. I just have to come out of my comfort zone and just say, okay, I'm going to do this. I don't know I don't know what's going to happen, but I got to do this. I got to do it. And I just tried it, and wow, boom, by Krishna's mercy, it happened. So it just gave me the realization that, yeah, Krishna's in control. It's beyond my intelligence. It was like, leaping off the diving board into the pool. You kind of. You don't know. You're not 100% confident. Is this going to work out all right? But you're not 100% sure it will. But you have to do it. So we had to take that leap of faith, and I did. And reciprocation was there. The people were taking the saptas, and then so the next day, Sunday, that was Saturday, and then Sunday I had an experience which was also very faith enriching. I took Krishna Kumar out with us, and he was also initially he was very apprehensive. He's there looking around. How do you do this? What are you going to do? He said, I'm just going to watch you. I said, okay, but you're not going to see much. I mean, so I started doing what I did normally, right? And for about an hour or so, and he was watching me, and it's right. And I think he had the same experience. He just at some point, I said, okay, I'm going to eat something now, so I'm going to sit down and take some prasadam. Go ahead. And he went, okay. right? And he just dove in there and he just did the same thing, just same lines exactly. And lo and behold, to his amazement, people were taking it. He had the same reaction. It's working. It's working. They're taking the books and they're giving me, $25 to $50. I don't understand how it's happening, but it's happening. So, so I guess the point is that, the lesson, well, Krishna's in control, and we have to come out of our comfort zone and take that leap of faith. And not necessarily, we're book distributors, so, that's our service. So we did it in that way, but it's a principle. And the principle is that in whatever service you're in, there's some challenge that that if I could kind of face that challenge and overcome it, that would be really good. That would be, I make a lot of advancement. So right? So in other words, we all have the same service in the sense that we all have to surrender to Krishna in different activities. So actually, we're the same. We're all like, I had a phrase I thought of this morning. Let's see if I could find it. Oh yeah, adventurers in self-realization. Superficially it appears that we have different services, right? You're a book distributor, you're a pujari, you're a cook, you're a manager. But that's externally, but internally we're all surrenderers to Krishna. We're adventurers in self-realization. Just like the challenge for us was to have the faith to just give these total strangers who are walking around with wanting to spend their money on sense gratification, a big, bunch of religious books, and expect them to take them and carry them around all day and give us money for it. That was, the challenge we had to face. And there's a challenge for, Srivas Prabhu, there's a challenge for Dhruta Prabhu, there's challenges for Naikatma Prabhu, and all the different devotees, whatever your service is, there's some challenges. And we have to just do that. We have to be prepared to do that. To just kind of like go out on a limb, and just, okay, Krishna, I'm going to do it. I'm going to try. I don't know how can't see how this is going to work. I can't see how this is going to be successful, but Hare Krishna, like Draupadi, she just, at one point she just went, hey Govinda, Krishna, of course, reciprocated. So, yeah. I mean, it wasn't like I chose to do that. We had to. And our experience was that, Krishna came through. He allowed it to happen. Right? The books went out and people were, taking these big stacks of books that are heavy and they'd have to carry around for the next 1, 2, 3, 4 hours, however long they were going to be there, and they were giving us donations. So it was, that was a realization. Huh? 100 over the 3 days. Yeah. So, so this is, I think it's, this point of being willing or being prepared to take the leap of faith is it's an important thing to think about. And there's one point where Prabhupada, and I made this point about we're all like adventurers in self-realization, and when I thought of that, I was reminded of something I remembered Prabhupada saying. I don't know if this is verbatim, but Prabhupada said, I've concocted or I've manufactured all these engagements, all these services just to engage you. See, so in other words, that's the thing. It's just, we have different activities, different services, but the principle is, we have to surrender to Krishna. And for each of us, that's something different, because, depending upon our service, psychophysiological makeup and the service we have, But that's the idea, that we have to just face it. Face the challenge head on and depend on Krishna. I'm preaching himself. I don't always do that. I practically never do it. But I had to do it. I had to do it over the weekend, and by Krishna's mercy, I plucked up the courage to do it, and it worked. So that's it. We have to just, face the challenge head on, and then depend on Krishna. There's a verse I think it's the 18th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita. It goes, Krishna says, if you become conscious of me, you will pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life by my grace. So that same idea, just face it, pray to Krishna, be Krishna conscious, pray to Krishna, and just go forward, do it. And, let's see what happens, right? Worst that'll happen is you just flop on your face and fail, but we didn't experience that. It wasn't like everybody took this, the bunch of books. There's a lot of rejection, but enough so that we felt at the end of the day, we felt encouraged that wow, it happened, it wasn't. So that was a very faith-enriching experience. Krishna Kumar had his biggest day ever, and was your experience similar to mine? Were you kind of pretty amazed? Well, you got a microphone here?
Hare Krishna. Thank you.
What was your experience?
Well, I didn't know I was going to go until Guru Puja, like in the morning program, and I didn't have, you had a methodology, which was don't wear anything devotional, and so you gave me clothes and shoes. So I was in the car, you looked at me, you said, "You're a second me," and I looked at my shoes, I go,
I said, "Chinese me."
"Oh, you're Chinese me."
Yeah.
And I said, "But I don't know how I'm going to fill these shoes." And when we got there, I had told Sahadev my whole plan. I was going to get friends with them, hear about their interests, flatter them up, and then try to relate it to our books. And then I saw you doing your thing, which was just, wow, who are you dressed as? Yourself? That's the best. Here, take this. And can you, we print the books ourselves for monks. Can you give a donation? It was as bare bones as possible. And I was thinking, I don't think this is going to work, especially if I try to do it. But then when I just decided, my leap of faith was I was dressed as you, I was wearing your shoes, I'm just going to do exactly what he's doing. That was my leap of faith. And it was, I was expecting to do maybe 1 or 2 saptas, but I did 10 or 12. So it was.
And were you amazed when it worked?
I was amazed by just doing, listening and seeing how you do it for an hour, not even trying to sell a book for the first hour and a half, and just trying to follow your example, that I didn't feel tired the whole time, and I did the biggest day I would have ever done.
Okay, so now to expand it to a bigger picture, bigger principles, that this is a small thing. But Prabhupada wanted his disciples to become moons. What do you mean by that? He could quote Chanakya Pandit, I can't remember, Ekas Chandra Haras, what's the use of so many stars if there's just one moon? It can illuminate the whole night sky like that. So Prabhupada wanted his disciples to become moons, means luminaries. Luminary means one who enlightens. He wanted his disciples ideally to become luminaries within human society. So that's really what the task we're faced with, how to become luminaries in human society. So, same principle, I think we have to do like that. We have to face it. Prabhupada wanted us to become luminaries. Let's try to do that. And it's, I can barely speak. How can I become a luminary? I'm not educated. Prabhupada said, it's the same thing. It seems like it's impossible. It's impossible. I can't become a luminary. I thought 2 days ago, I thought it was impossible to sell the saptas, but it happened. So in the same way, we can become luminaries. One thing we have to just follow Prabhupada's instructions and pray for it. Why not? We got to do something with our minds. This morning I was chanting my japa on the roof of the Trader Joe's parking lot. And felt a little inspired. It was a clear morning. Seeing the sunrise, and I was praying. Okay, Krishna, please help me become a straight A person. I had a friend when I was a kid. His name was 2 friends actually, Peter Anderson, and I'll tell you about one. But this fella, I knew him since we were 5 years old. He lived in the next building from me, where we lived, and he was straight A all throughout school. I don't think he ever got less than an A in any subject in anything. And he was good, top athlete, good character, everything. Just a straight A. So I was just, remembering him, and I was thinking, I want to become like that, but in relation to Krishna consciousness. In other words, I want to become a straight A person, like a luminary. Just good character, surrendered, knowledgeable in the philosophy and with realization, just what else? That's the perfect thing to do with one's life. To try to become like a Prabhupada-like person. Prabhupada, by the way, was a moon, plus a luminary. So that's what we have to shoot for. We should try to do that, and try to apply this same principle in trying to achieve that. It seems like it's impossible. Somebody like Judah Karma, he could become a luminary. He's already a luminary. But, the rest of us, we're just kind of like, But, we have to give it a shot. We have to give it a shot. And, we have to just, Prabhupada said he wanted that, and we can address it. And how it manifests might be different for each one of us, but in our own way, each one of us can become a luminary. Each one of us can become somebody who inspires people to take up spiritual life. That's the essence of being a luminary, that you inspire somebody to take up spiritual life, Krishna consciousness. And that could be done by being a great speaker, or just by having wonderful qualities that people can really admire and appreciate, whatever. It can take different forms. I could see how it could take different forms. But we shouldn't back down from that. That's actually what we've been charged with. Become a luminary. And I think it starts with acknowledging that that's ideally what we want to do, and start organizing our life and praying for it. And let's see what happens. So I'll stop there. Does anybody have any question? Benjanath first, senior most devotee.
You were mentioning about how the spiritual master manufactures things to engage his disciples. So I don't understand, but doesn't the spiritual master just gives the knowledge that he receives from Krishna? It's nothing actually manufactured. And if you mean manufactured, what do you mean by that exactly?
Yeah, well, I wasn't making a point from my own understanding. I was trying to quote. As I said, I didn't take the time didn't to actually find the quote, but there is a statement from Prabhupada, and it goes either, I have concocted all these engagements, these services just to engage you, or he said, I've manufactured these services just to engage you. And I could find it for you. Prabhupada said something like that, pretty close to that. So it's a statement from Prabhupada. So it's not a question of what do I mean, what am I thinking? Prabhupada said it. And now it's just how do we understand that?
How do we understand those two things, that manufacturing and just giving what
the idea is that Prabhupada could see that, his disciples had a certain psychophysiological makeup. If you go like right back in the beginning, there's that anecdote where initially after the first initiation, Prabhupada said, okay, now you've got your beads, chant 64 rounds. And the devotees came back to him and said, Prabhupada, we can't chant 64 rounds. He said, okay, 32. And then they came back to him again, and he said, well, Prabhupada, we can't chant 32 rounds. And Prabhupada said, okay, 16, no less. So Prabhupada, as the Acharya, his thing is to engage these people in Krishna consciousness, so he used his intelligence, and Krishna's giving him, to give us things so that we could be engaged in devotional service. From what, at least from that story, it's the traditional standard was, okay, you're initiated, chant 64 rounds. But when Prabhupada saw that his disciples either were incapable of or unwilling, or combination of both, to do that, he made other arrangements so that we could be engaged in devotional service. Hence, that statement, Prabhupada said, I've concocted or manufactured, whatever, I don't know can't remember which word, to engage you. Prabhupada's trying to engage us in devotional service.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, Babu. I was hearing a Sankirtan address Sivaram Maharaj was giving to his book distributors, and he was speaking from this scenario from Raghunath Das Goswami's book, where a devotee his services of being read to Srimati Radharani at the end of life. How many plates of prasadam this person distributed, how many books, how many people he brought him to Krishna consciousness, how much deity dressing, cooking. And he was saying at the end, he started speaking about you. He said, my god brother, Bhrgupati Prabhu, he used to take out the bhaktas on book distribution in Chicago. And he said he's still going out to this day and distributing books. And he said, I can't imagine what kind of destination is awaiting for him. So,
well, I never was in Chicago, so he might have been talking about another Bhrgupati.
No.
Maybe.
So I remember always when we go out on books, at least few days a week, you start off saying like, everything has to end one day, I guess today is the day. And then you'll do like $500 worth of books at the end, so always fresh. Thank you.
Yes, Oscar.
Thank you for a nice class. You just made me think about how in early days of Krishna consciousness, we were always kind of told that we should think about how to preach according to time, place, and circumstance. And so I think that came from Srila Prabhupada, because even when he first came to the US, he was praying, how am I going to give Krishna consciousness to all these boys and girls? He realized that he couldn't be like thinking that he's in Mayapur Dham and preaching to someone. So he had to figure out how he was going to preach to the Western kids who were just interested in all kinds of simple activity. So this principle of time, place, and circumstance is essential in terms of spreading Krishna consciousness. And you may call that manufacturing, but it's not like Prabhupada deviated.
No, yeah, that's
according to the time and the place and the circumstance, he preached Krishna consciousness, and look what came of it. The whole International Society for Krishna Consciousness. So we as devotees, we should take that principle also, that we have to understand there's certain places that you're going to do things in a certain way, but in another place you're going to do it in another way. Just like you learn how to do the Saptarishi sets there at that particular place. So I think that principle is very important, and Krishna will guide us in the heart like he guided you to be able to accomplish that goal.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. What we were doing yesterday, if I was trying to sell sets of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatams to, cultured Indian people, it wouldn't work. You couldn't just say two things. And so time, place, and circumstance. And as you said, if we're sincere, Krishna will reveal to us what to do according to time, place, and circumstance. And that's a very important point. And that's how we become luminaries too. Krishna, if we're sincere about it, Krishna will reveal to us how each one of us can really flourish in Krishna consciousness. Anybody else have anything? Yeah, Krishna Kumar.
This is in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 3, 26. It's na buddhi bedam janayed, and the translation given is, so as not to disrupt the minds of ignorant men attached to the fruitive results of prescribed duties, a learned person should not induce them to stop work. Rather, by working in the spirit of devotion, he should engage them in all sorts of activities, parenthetical, for the gradual development of Krishna consciousness, and parenthetical.
Okay, so read the last paragraph of that purport. We'll end on that note. Go ahead.
Okay. It's one paragraph.
Oh, really? Okay, that's not the one I was thinking of then. Okay, figure that. Thank you very much. Grantaraj Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.